Welcome in. Hope you guys are all doing good and having a great XDefiant launch day. Now, if you found this video, obviously you're looking for the settings sauce so that you guys can get set up as quickly as possible and get jumping into game. So that's what I've got for you guys today. First and foremost, we're going to be starting with the global settings that are available on every platform, and then we're going to follow that up with the PC specific stuff. And as well, I'll be including chapter markers for you guys so you can jump around to whatever part you need to get to. Now, we've got a lot of ground to cover in today's video, so we're going to try to blitz through it as quickly as possible for you guys. But before we jump into the settings, I'd like to just ask you guys if you could leave a like on the channel, and as well consider subscribing, as both of those things are going to greatly help me out to continue creating content like this for you guys. But without further ado, let's jump into the settings. Real quickly here, we're just going to run through the settings here. For FOV, I recommend an FOV of 103 to 120. Closer to 120 if you're on M&K, closer to 103 if you're on controller, as that gives the most consistent aim assist. Radius FOV, I recommend regardless, you should be on consistent, as that'll be a little bit more zoomed out and allow you to see more while you're aimed down sights. Radius behavior, I recommend having it on hold, as that's typically the norm. For ADS sensitivity transition, I would recommend instant. For melee during ADS, this is personal preference. For you guys who like to get up close and personal, you might want to have this on so you can pop a cheeky little melee during a close quarters gunfight. But if you're accidentally pressing the melee and losing gunfights because of that while you're ADS, you can also turn it off. Aiming interrupts reload, I would almost always have this on, as this is the fastest way for you to cancel your reload, especially if you're caught off guard. You can just start ADSing and your gun is automatically going to cancel its reload and you can get the firing as soon as possible. Crouch behavior, I personally have this on toggle, as that's my preference. You can also have this on hold if you like. Sprint behavior, a lot of people would say this is personal preference, but I would personally advocate for hold, as it does make some advanced movement techniques a little bit more consistent. Auto sprint, I rock with this on. I just find it makes my movement a lot snappier, but if you're not used to it, you can also have it off. Sprint interrupts reload, I would have this off. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you need to disengage or if you're a very aggressive player, being able to sprint while you're reloading is obviously very useful. Slide behavior on tap just makes your slide cancels very consistent. Auto switch and auto reload, I would both have on. Auto grab ledge, I would personally turn this off so that you don't mantle edges accidentally. Scoreboard behavior, this is personal preference. I personally use hold. Adjust HUD limits is an interesting one, and personal preference, honestly. If you play on a widescreen or just prefer having a more condensed HUD, you can pull all your HUD elements more closer to the center of your screen, which is personally what I tend to do. Now, for damage numbers, enemy health bars, and minimap rotations, all three of these must be on. This is crucial information that you guys need to have. For distance units, I put this in meters, as that's what's in the gunsmith. Ping display, I would turn this on just so I can see my ping and make sure it's not going crazy. Now, for team composition overlay, not a lot of people know that this is in the game, but this is actually kind of like a mini scoreboard that's on your screen at all times, and it'll show the status of all your teammates and the enemies, whether they're alive, respawning, and what their ultimate status is like. So definitely this is a lot of key info that you guys are going to want on your screen at all times. I would 100% turn this setting on. Real quickly, if you found the guide helpful so far, I just ask that you leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel as well. If anything was unclear or you have more questions, I'll be live on Twitch when this video goes up. Link in the description. You guys can drop over there and ask me any questions you have. I'd be happy to answer. Moving on to controller settings, here we have Dylan Arco's settings, friend of mine and Call of Duty Challengers player. His Twitter will be linked in the description. You can see here he's rocking the brawler flipped button layout. This is personal preference. You can change this to whatever you prefer. Aim assist on standard. He reduces his aim assist strength adjustment to -1. What this is going to achieve is this is going to make your aim feel a little bit less muddy and sticky. It's not going to affect your rotational strength, as that falls under the follow adjustment. So this is just going to make your aim feel a little bit more responsive when you're on target. As for aim response curve, he rocks reverse S curve. And for his zoom multipliers, he just rocks 1.0 on both. As well, for sensitivity, he rocks 4242 with a 2x acceleration multiplier and a low dead zone of 3 on both sticks, with controller vibration off. As far as what controller preset I would recommend you guys run, I would say Skill Thumb Brawler is a good layout if you guys don't have paddles. This places crouch on your R3 and jump on L1. This preset is going to allow you guys to slide cancel without taking your thumbs and fingers off of any important buttons. As far as audio goes, personally, I just turn down the music volume to 0 and turn down the dialogue volume slightly, and I leave everything else untouched. In language and accessibility, we can set our colorblind mode and flashbang effect. Personally, I would turn the flashbang effect to dark, and for colorblind mode, I don't remember exactly which one it is, but one of these options is going to highlight your enemies in yellow, which I find really makes them pop out on a lot of maps. So consider tinkering around with that setting and seeing if you can find one that you like the look of. Now in Matchmaking Account, you can find the toggles to turn off crossplay and input-based matchmaking. Personally, I would leave both of these on to make sure that you're both getting the fastest match possible and that you're playing against people who are on the same input device as you. Now for all my PC people, I'm going to be going over the graphics settings that I ran in the last test. These are still the best settings and what I'm personally going to be running this test. These are my graphics settings that I run. Full screen, obviously you want to be in full screen so that there's no input lag. If you're on like windowed full screen or just regular windowed, there's going to be extra input lag. Personally, for res, this is a stretch resolution. I run 1720 by 1080. Most of you are going to be running native, just one click back and you have 1720. Refresh rate, just make sure this is on max. For me it's 240, it's the only option even available. Monitor, this is if you have multiple monitors, most of you don't, so that's not important. You want this on for this. If you have a weaker system, enabled plus boost. If you have a pretty beefy system, just leave it on enabled. For brightness, around 10 I find is nice. I also like to bump up the contrast because I find it helps me see like echelon players and stuff when they're in the invis suit. You can kind of see the edges of their they kind of shimmer when they're invis. So I find that this makes that effect stand out a little bit more if you bump up the contrast. You want to enable DX12 render if you have a newer graphics card. If you have like a really old graphics card, you might want to leave this to no, but if you have like NVIDIA like 10,000 series or older, probably just run the DX12. It tends to run a little bit better. Graphics quality on custom, VSync always off, frame limit. I mean, you can have this off. If you have it on, the max is 200, but if you have it off, you can actually go way past 200. So if you get more than 200 frames, you can leave it off. But if you want to limit it, say you only have like a 144 hertz monitor or something, you can turn it on and limit it to 144. It's fine. Shadow quality low, spot shadow low, all this low, contact shadows off, res scale. If you turn this down, you're going to get more FPS, but it does kind of look pretty trash, so I just leave it on 100 because I get pretty good frames already. Sharpening, you're going to want to crank this up a little bit. Like by default, I think it's on like 5 or something, but I keep it on 10 just so that edges are really crisp and stuff, and it helps with like seeing detail from really far away, especially again like the invis suits kind of really pop out when you bump the sharpening up a little bit. Particles, put this on low, volumetric fog low, all this low, low, off, low, subterface off, parallax no, ambient no. Object detail, you're gonna want to keep this maxed. Extra streaming distance, this is like how far your view distance is, so you're gonna want to max this out so that people that are way far across the map are gonna like load in properly and they're not gonna look all blocky. Lens flares, obviously turn this off. This is super distracting. Water quality low, chroma aberration, just turn that off. It's distracting. High res, you don't need sky textures, turn them off. Terrain low, and apply, and then yeah, that's all the in-game graphic settings that you guys should be running if you want to make sure that your game is running as fast as possible. And now as far as mouse and keyboard settings go, this is obviously all personal preference, but a lot of you guys have been asking for my settings recently, so I thought I would throw this in. I run 1600 mouse DPI, and I run a mouse sensitivity of 7 to 11, which is about 40 centimeters to 35 or maybe 30. For mouse ADS sensitivity on low zoom, I rock 1x. This is about the same as Cold War's 1x sensitivity on the 125 scope, and for mouse ADS high zoom, I actually turn it down a little bit to 0.75 as I like a little bit of a slower scope. Mouse acceleration, obviously turn this off. If you are a player who uses Excel, you're probably already using an external driver to handle that, so you don't want the in-game implementation. Invert vertical axis, obviously we're not flying planes here, turn this off. Right click back, I just have this off. I think this is to navigate the menus with your mouse. Just kind of an annoying setting, I don't really like it. And lock mouse to the game window, you're going to want this on if you have a double monitor or just in general so that your mouse isn't flying off the screen. With the in-game graphic settings handled, we're going to hop into the NVIDIA control panel settings. Sorry to all my AMD guys, but I don't own an AMD GPU, so I can't provide any settings for you guys in that department. But I'm just going to scroll through this really slowly and you guys can double check everything on your own and just pause the video if you need to see anything specific. Next, we're going to come down to resolution. Here, we're going to make sure that we're running the maximum refresh rate. For those of you guys who want to run stretch resolutions, what you would do here is you would come and create a resolution, and you would change this horizontal pixels to whatever you want. For example, 1720 by 1080. Let's go test. For me, I already have it, so it's just going to say it's a duplicate. But if you're just creating one, it'll run a quick test, and if you're able to run it, it will say test successful, and then it will pop up here in this custom resolution bar, and then you'll just tick to enable it and click OK, and then it'll pop up here in this custom tab. I handle my stretch resolution in game instead of actually changing the resolution of my monitor, so I'm just going to stay on native for now. As well, we can come down here into desktop color settings and mess with digital vibrance like this. If we want to really crank this up and really saturate those colors, we can. Personally, I handle this with another program that I'll show you guys later. So I just keep this on 50. As well, if we come to desktop size and position, if you guys are going to be wanting to run stretch resolutions, make sure that you perform full screen scaling. So select full screen and come down here to perform scaling on. If you have the option to use display, but I only have the option to use GPU, so I use GPU, and then tick this box to override the DPI scaling settings. As well, come down here to G-Sync, and personally, I keep it disabled as it does add some input lag. If you'd like to run G-Sync, you could. I would enable it for full screen mode. Very quickly here, I'd like to just highlight a program that I use called Vibrance GUI. Now what Vibrance GUI does is that we can come in here and add manually and come to our program files. U for Ubisoft, Ubisoft Game Launcher, Games, XDefiant, and we can grab the XDefiant exe and then set a Vibrance in-game level. And now what Vibrance GUI is going to handle is it's going to automate our Windows GUI Vibrance level for when it detects certain games running, and so you can add all the games you want to play and you can set individual Vibrance levels, and it will all be handled automatically, and then when you X out of the game, it will return to your standard Windows Vibrance level that you set right here. As well, for this program to run, we're just going to click auto start and affect primary monitor only, as well as never change resolutions. This is very important if you run stretch resolutions. Make sure that you tick this box, and as well, don't close the program. You need to keep it open for this program to work. So instead of hitting this X button, we just hit this minimize button, and then it's going to go into your process tray and just live here. It's a very lightweight app, doesn't take up a lot of system resources, so it's fine to just leave running in the background. As well, if we open our file explorer and navigate to our program files, U for Ubisoft, Ubisoft Game Launcher, go into Games, and then XDefiant, and scroll down until we find the XDefiant exe. There are a couple more tweaks we can do here. We can come to the compatibility and disable full screen optimizations, as well as override high DPI scaling on the application. Then hit apply and OK. As well, if we come to documents, my games, and then XDefiant, and here if we find the file labeled bcgfxuiconfig.config, come in here, we can actually set our minimap scale to higher than 1.0. And basically what this achieves is that I don't have to move my eyes very far, and I can see more of my minimap in my peripheral vision because things are just extra big, extra scaled up. This isn't going to make you see any extra of your minimap, but the size of the minimap is just going to be blown up in scale by a factor of 30%. As well, if we go to our search bar and look up game mode settings, we can turn game mode on. As well, if we come to graphics and change default graphics, we can turn on optimizations for windowed games. As well, we have hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. Now this is going to depend on what update version of Windows you're on. Personally, for me, hardware accelerated GPU scheduling on my current version of Windows works just fine for me, so I like to keep it on. But if you guys are having issues, you can turn this on and turn this off and see if it helps you at all. And there you guys have it. That's everything you need to know in terms of settings so that you guys can jump into game as soon as possible. Later today, I'll have another video going up covering the top 5 guns that I think you guys should be grinding out during the preseason. And over the course of the launch week, I'm going to have a lot more content coming out that you guys aren't going to want to miss. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.